Today on Trucks, we'll introduce Project Harry Hauler by installing a state-of-the-art front suspension on a 1934 International pickup truck. Then we'll show you the best of what our cameras caught at the four-wheel Jamboree Nationals in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania and Indianapolis. After that, it's back to the shop for some gas tank restoration. That's all today on Trucks.
Hello everybody, thanks for being with us again this week. As you can see, Project Wicked Willie's is getting real close to seeing its first action off-road. And believe us, in the weeks to come, we're going to finish it and punish it for you.
But let's face it, not all trucks are four-wheel drive. Heck, one of the most popular hot rods is the old T-Bucket Roadster from the 20s. Now, we didn't go quite that far back in time, but we did find a 34 International sitting in a field in Nebraska, and it was begging to be made into a hot rod.
So in the weeks to come, we're going to turn this old classic into a Harry Hauler with upgrades and how-to projects that'll work on early or late model pickups.
Now, the first thing that you want to do with a project of this size is to really spend some time deciding exactly where you want to go with it. Now, this is really important because if you change your mind in the middle of a project, you just flushed a lot of money down the toilet, and you'll probably end up with an unfinished piece of junk sitting in your driveway.
Also, by having a definite game plan, you'll know what parts can be tossed and what you need to hold on to. For example, these old wooden floorboards are going to be replaced with metal, so they're history.
Now, keep in mind, whenever you work on an older truck, you're going to have some rusty bolts, so make sure you have plenty of penetrating oil on hand. If that doesn't work, well, you may have to use a cutoff tool.
While Stacey's busy tearing things apart back there, I'll go ahead and show you the Super Ride front suspension we're going to use from Heights Hot Rod Shop. This is state-of-the-art hardware. Comes with a custom-made crossmember, stainless steel A-arms, coil-over shocks, spindles, rotors, polished calipers, if you can believe that, as well as a rack and pinion unit.
But before we can put on the new stuff, we gotta get rid of the old. Now, don't just grab a torch and cut this old crossmember out. You need to make sure the frame is square, and if it's not, now's the time to fix it. Grab a tape measure, measure diagonally across the frame from one of the body bolts up to one of the holes in the front. Then check the same measurement from the other side. Now, if these are not the same, you need to do some frame work until they are. Fortunately, ours are right on. Now, to keep the frame from moving, when we cut out this cross member, I'm going to temporarily weld in a brace back here and another one up here.
Now, with the braces in place, go ahead and mark your axle center line across the frame rails. Also, don't forget to take measurements of where the radiator mounts to the cross member. We're going to take vertical as well as horizontal measurements so we know exactly where the radiator is going to mount to the new cross member. Now, if you don't do this, you're going to have a problem with the alignment of your hood and the grille. After you have all your measurements, you can grind off the old rivets and drill them out.
The last thing we're going to do is unbolt these old leaf springs and then cut these brake cables. Check this out, mechanical brakes. Man, that's a step up from the Flintstones.
Yeah, it's a good thing this thing only had about 60 horse off the assembly line. Finally, we can knock out the old cross member.
Now, it's important to clean the frame with a wire brush or a sandblaster so you can make some good welds. Now, once you have the frame clean, you can box it in and put in the cross member, or you can put the cross member in first and then box the frame, which is what we're going to do. Now, the beauty of this Heights kit is that you literally slide it into place and line it up. It's got all the right geometry as well as a degree of caster already built right into it. Set the cross member center line 1/8 of an inch in front of the axle center line and clamp it in place. Once you have it where it needs to be, then you can tack weld it in place.
Don't forget the golden rule when it comes to a project like this. Make sure you double check all your measurements so you only have to weld it once. We need to take a break right now, but stay with us. Project Harry Hauler is just getting started.
Later in the show, we'll take you with us on the road for some four-wheel Jamboree action. But up first, we're going to show you how to finish off the front suspension on Project Harry Hauler. Just can't get enough of trucks? Check us out online at truckstv.com.
Welcome back to the shop, everybody. As you can see, we're well on our way to having a state-of-the-art front suspension on Project Harry Hauler. That way we can tool down the interstate and the drag strip without ending up in a ditch. Now, I know a lot of you guys are probably thinking, well, that's great, but what the heck, I don't have a 34 International. Well, don't worry. Heights makes a kit for just about any vintage truck out there.
Now it's time to start fitting our Classic with the new hardware. Now, like we told you before, the upper and lower A-arms are stainless, so besides looking great, they're going to be plenty strong enough as well. The spindle pops right onto the lower and upper ball joint. Don't forget the dust boot. It's also a good idea, even if you're just going to push your vehicle around for a while, to go ahead and grease the ball joints.
One of the really cool things about this suspension is its adjustability. You've got your caster and camber adjustments right here in this upper A-arm. Your camber, which is the vertical plane of the spindle, is adjusted by turning these ends either in or out the same amount. Your caster, which is the rearward tilt of the spindle, is adjusted by turning one end in and the other one out. This way you can adjust your suspension just like a race car.
Another really neat feature about this setup are these adjustable coilover shocks. Now, for those of you who don't know, coilover shock is a combination of a coil spring and shock absorber all wrapped into one. In the past, when guys tried to build a custom front end, they never really knew if it was going to be too high or too low until they put weight on it. By then, it was way too late. That's where these adjustable shocks really come in handy. Simply turn this adjusting nut on the bottom and you can get any stance you want.
While Mel's fiddling around with the shocks, I'm going to go ahead and bolt on the rack and pinion. Now, one of the biggest mistakes that people make when they build a lightweight vehicle is they think, oh, I got to have power steering. Well, that's a common misconception. A lot of times a power rack will make your steering real squirrely. Everybody knows that they suck horsepower. The bottom line, with a lightweight truck, a manual rack is more than you need, even if you're going to drop in a big old 383 stroker like we're going to do in the Harry Hauler.
Now, since we are going to stuff as many horses under the hood as we can, we got to have disc brakes, which is actually the crowning touch to this kit. Installation couldn't be any easier. The polished 4-piston caliper bolts right up to the spindle. We're also going to use steel braided brake lines, but we're not even close to being ready for those yet.
But we are about ready to put a set of front wheels on the old hauler. And for those, we went to Team 3 Wheels to get a set of their ET 10-spoke gasser wheels. Now, these are designed directly from the old spindle mount wheels that most of the drag cars used back in the 60s. The big difference is they're all aluminum, they have lug nuts, and they're polished front, rear, and just about everywhere in between. These things are great.
I'll tell you what, Stace, the front end on this old International has come a long way from the day we first found it, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. About the only thing we have left to do is box this frame, and we'll be done up here, at least for a while.
Very cool. Unfortunately, we've run out of time for this segment of Project Harry Hauler, but don't worry, we'll deal with boxing and other frame building techniques in the weeks to come.
For more information about trucks, check us out online at truckstv.com.
If four-wheel drive trucks are what turn your crank, then a special events four-wheel Jamboree is the place to be. Young or old, mild or wild, they've got something for everybody. From tough trucks to core trucks, blown trucks to tall, and yes, everybody, there's even really small. Hey, wait a minute, that's not a truck. Okay, man, I've seen some crazy things out here, but a Chevette, what possessed you, man?
Why not?
That's the best.
What else would, there's nothing else like it.
Well, no one's gonna forget you.
That's for sure.
What kind of chassis do you have?
It's just a Chevy love truck. All factory, 4-cylinder. Just gotta break the norm.
You're not afraid to get air with it either,
Oh,
are you?
no. It was built to come out here and beat.
We took our cameras to 2 Jamborees last season, and in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania, it was a monster truck that stole the show when the legendary Bigfoot 4, driven by, or maybe we should say flown by, Dan Runney, tried to knock the stuffing out of himself and his 5-ton rig by hurling the monster just under 145 feet through the air.
25 years went into this, you know, to go 144 foot 10 inches. That's got to say something right now.
When I got up to you after this was all over, you were literally shaking.
Adrenaline.
I mean, this is pure adrenaline. This
Oh,
has
yeah.
got to be better than any kind of drug out there.
Oh yeah, definitely. No doubt about it. I mean, it is. It just, we go out and play in monster trucks and we have fun and, you know, get kids to follow this instead of something else. And we do it and, you know, if it wasn't for fans, we wouldn't be here. So we'll do the best job we can.
At the Indiana State Fairgrounds, it was the Championship Off-Road Racing Series, led by the legendary Walker Evans and a few of his closest friends, that had everybody on the edge of their seats.
I think the 4 Series is a fabulous series. I always did love the Mickey Thompson Stadium racing. I've loved long-distance desert racing, and this is kind of the combined, you might say a little in between the both. We get to use big V8s, high horsepower, full-size trucks on man-made graded tracks. Spectators get to come and see them. You know, in off-road racing, it's beautiful, it's fantastic, but unless you got a helicopter, you don't get to watch much of it.
Now, obviously, the core series and the monster trucks are for the spectators in the crowd. But for the do-it-yourselfer, you can cover 200 feet of mud in a blown truck, battle the tough truck course in your stock or modified truck, and if all else fails, there's always the burnout contest. But whatever you choose, one thing is certain. This is the place to let your adrenaline flow and the good times roll.
If everything goes right, it puts you in the seat so hard you can't really, you're kind of the car, it's up to the car to do whatever it's going to do because you have no control. The only control you have is lift.
Now, what does it feel like when that front end comes up off the ground?
Your first instinct is to lift, but if you lift, you're going to lose. Just going straight and stay in it.
Well, I don't know if it's just the rush or what, but you know, like I said, you know, I got into it when I was young, and it's just something I like to do. You go out and let it out on the right foot, you know, and just go a little bit wild.
I do it for myself first. It's, you know, my own self-gratification. You know, to feel my truck go as fast as it can, and everybody else is a fringe benefit of my fun.
Oh, by the way, if you're somebody who doesn't like to get his truck dirty, there's also a place to show off your shine. Bottom line, a special events 4-wheel Jamboree has something for the entire family.
Jamborees are excellent events for everybody. I mean, they got the little kids up to grandpa like me. You know, everybody comes, everybody has a good time to watch crazy people like me out there doing wheelies and watch the monster trucks.
If you want more trucks, check us out online at truckstv.com.
Thanks for staying with us, everybody. You know, if you have a vehicle that's more than 10 years old, there's a good chance you have some rust in the gas tank. Heck, temperature changes alone can cause condensation to settle on the bottom, resulting in rust, and that'll definitely kill your horsepower.
So, we're going to show you how to treat an old gas tank even if it's got some minor pinholes in it. Now, the first thing you need to do is look your tank over and make sure there's no major holes or rips in it. Now, it is possible to weld up an old tank, but this is obviously an explosive situation, so if you don't know what you're doing, you better get a new tank.
Our tank doesn't have any holes in it, so we'll be able to use this kit from the Eastwood Company. It comes complete with the metal wash, OxySolve rust remover, as well as the tank sealer itself. To finish off the job, we'll use this zinc coating to prevent rust on the outside. Now, if you tackle this project, make sure you have plenty of ventilation.
The first thing you need to do is take off your sending unit. Now go easy here because these little screws are prone to rust and notorious for breaking off. Now if you do, don't worry about it. Just drill them out and retap them. Now once you have the unit out, take about a 4-foot length of chain and drop it down inside. Now shake it around. What this does is knocks loose all the crud that's built up over time.
Now that Stace has all the big stuff knocked loose, believe me, you never know what you're going to find in these old gas tanks. We can hit it with a solution of the metal wash that dissolves the gummy varnish that forms when gas gets old. After dumping the metal wash, pour in the rust remover that etches the surface for good adhesion of the sealer. With the tank clear and dry, you can apply the sealer.
Now since you can't see inside the tank too well, we're going to show you what's going on in there. Now here's an untreated piece of metal and you can see it's got some rust. Now this center section is what it looks like after you use the rust remover. Now it's got a zinc phosphate coating and that inhibits rust. And finally, the sealer forms an inner liner that totally seals the inside of the tank, including any small pinholes.
The last thing we need to do is spray the outside with this zinc coating to make sure our tank doesn't rust from the outside in. It only costs about 40 bucks to do this project ourselves, which is a whole lot cheaper than buying a new tank.
You've heard us talk about using Loctite on bolts. The problem is Loctite comes in different colors, red, green, and blue. So the obvious question is, which color do I use? Fortunately, I have an answer for you. The red is for a high strength application, like a flywheel bolt or anything that's under high stress. The blue is a medium strength for like valve covers or thermostat housings, and it's the most commonly used. The green has the same strength as the blue, but it's the only one that penetrates, so you actually put it on after the parts have been assembled.
In off-roading circles, the term air down means to lower your tire pressure from what you run on the street. This gives you a wider contact patch that results in much better traction on the trail. Well, it doesn't take a genius to figure out our classic pickup used to be home to a family of field mice. Fortunately, this little black box from Y-Tech can serve an eviction notice to just about any pest problem you might have, inside or out. The sounds emitted from the transonic CIX create such a hostile environment that targeted pests are forced to vacate the premises. The graphic pictures on the back allow you to customize the sound to repel anything from ticks to squirrels. And all you need is 110 volts to cover up to 3,500 square feet. Rid yourself of any unwanted guests with a transonic CIX for about $50.
A properly inflated tire is a must for good wear, handling, and gas mileage. And most blowouts start with a slow leak. Well, Smart Tire has come up with a way to monitor up to 6 tires while you drive. This is great if you're pulling a trailer. Now the pressure and temperature of each tire is displayed on this unit in the cab. Now it picks up the signal from these wireless sensors that mount inside the tire on the rim, so you always know what your tires are doing. A Smart Tire system like this goes for about 500 bucks.
You know, most people like to put their trucks to work, but hey, there's nothing wrong with wanting to protect your investment as well. Speedliner has both ends covered with their performance spray-on bed liners that they claim can withstand twice the abuse of other liners. Also, with spray-on bed liners, you permanently seal and guard your bed from dirt, water, and chemicals that cause rust and corrosion under drop-in liners. Protect your investment with Speedliner starting at about $350. That's going to do it for Truck Gear. Here's a preview of next week's show.
We've got a ZR2 S10 in the shop that's going to get a pop-out rear window, bed cap, and rack. Then we've got the ultimate work truck from GMC. The Professional has everything you'd ever need to get the job done, and then some. After that, we'll get Project Trail Boss ready for the paint booth. That's all next week on Trucks.
That's going to do it for this week's show. Thanks for being with us. We look forward to trucking with you again next week.
Trucks is an RTM production.